Hello and welcome to Irish Science Fiction. My name is Brian Sexton and this is Nancy Goodaim the Space Ranger. This is going to be chapter 36, and if you've been following the story, and well, God love you if you have, Nancy Goodaim and Haban and Shinobel Unterwackle are visiting the Aberdeen monks in the hope of finding a way to Shan Labafestin via the Witch of Mullinavore, who they have just met. Anyway, a hen, a daw and a tree, and away we go. I am the Witch of Mullinavore. If you're asking what is in my suitcases, then you should know it is none of your business, nor from whence I came. The well-dressed, middle-aged female humanoid that had appeared in a blast of wind and dust faced the seated Nancy, Haban, Shinobel, and the abbot. But she seemed to be speaking to a point above them. Her eyes gazed blankly into the middle distance as she spoke. Is she talking to me? Asked Shinobel. I think, said the abbot, that she is just making a general announcement. She does this a bit. Just nod and agree. She'd be hungry and tired after her trip, so best just to let her rant on. The abbot then stood up from the bench and walked into the large, badly maintained shed next to it. The witch was about 10 feet away from where Nancy, Haban and Shinobel were sitting. There was no other sign of life in the large forest clearing. The business of a witch is nobody's but that witch's. So don't ask me what I was up to. Nobody asked you anything, said Shinobel. Quiet, you big dope, hissed Haban. Didn't the abbot just tell you to go along with her? I was just telling her that. Silence you! For any more disrespect, and I will cast you into Shanlabafestin! That's why we're here, began Nancy. Silence you two! I hadn't finished. I was about to say Shanlabafestin Uchther. Oh, right you be, witch, said Haban. Apologies. My two friends here, they're not used to speaking with the enchanted. Did I tell you to speak? Asked the witch. She kept her blank stare aimed at a point in the middle distance. It was not clear who she was talking to. No, are we supposed to have permission or something? Asked Shinobel. Quiet, will ya? Hissed Haban. Silence! Roared the witch. Is everyone okay with haluberberries on their Falantian palates? Came the abbot's voice from inside the broken down shed. Not for me, said Nancy. So, continued the witch, nobody asked me where I was. You said that, said Shinobel. Whisht, shushed Haban. I think, said Nancy. Silence, continued the witch. Do not question someone who holds the keys to magic, for it is both an insult and a rejection of sorcery, and sorcery is the ultimate power in the universe. And yes, I will have haluberberries. Thank you, abbot. Will the dinner be long? Not long, shouted the abbot from somewhere inside the large ruined shed. I think the witch wants us to ask her where she was, whispered Nancy. How do you make that out? Asked Shinobel. She keeps telling us not to do it. So what are you saying to me, Nancy? She doesn't mean what she says. So will I go to the abbot and tell him to leave off the haluberberries? Asked Shinobel. Nancy cleared her throat. Witch, she asked, where were you? The witch flung her hands into the air. Sparks flew from her fingertips. She threw back her head and waited. Haban, Nancy and Shinobel all flinched. The witch then walked over to the bench and sat down next to Shinobel. I wouldn't normally speak to mortals about my business, she said, but I've just been to Tor and Galump. Oh, very good, said Nancy. Good for you, said Haban. So what? Asked Shinobel. Have you been there? Asked the witch. Where? The back of the shed behind you. Where do you think? What? Asked Shinobel. Tor and Galump. That was a rhetorical question. You haven't been there. Only us magic folk get to go there because it's amazing. So that's the so what. And was it nice? Asked Nancy. Nice is not the word. It was amazing. Incredible views out across the Sea of Uncertainty. Amazing nighttime aurora. And all the fish you can eat. Oh, said Nancy. Did they have haluberberries? Asked the abbot from inside the large, partly ruined shed. No, they did not, replied the witch. Then it is lucky you came back early. I'm about to serve you some on top of Falantian palates, said the abbot. And it's the first time anyone in the Aberdeen order has ever done so. So it should be great. Fine, said the witch. But I can't help thinking, abbot, that you're trying to make light of my description of Tor and Galump in front of these guests. And you know something, that place is great. If it was so great, then why did you come back? Asked Shinobel. Whisht, you big idiot, hissed Haban. That is none of your business, yelled the witch. And anyway, it's not my fault that the locals in Tor and Galump are prudish. Nancy, Schnabel and Abon sat in silence. Nancy could smell hot food being prepared behind her. It smelled of meat. It was nothing she recognised, but it was appealing. She suddenly remembered how hungry she was. "Is it my fault that they're prudish?" asked the witch loudly. "How in the name of Bongerlon would we know, you daft old hag?" muttered Schnabel. "I heard that," snapped the witch. "And I'm not old. I'm only in the middle of my life. Sure, what age are you then? You look like you were buried in the swamp of Roranleth for 12 eons and only dug up this morning." "That's very specific," noted Abon. "But you know, witch, you're right. He does look old and haggard." "Ah, now," said Schnabel. "You're no great shakes yourself, Abon. Did you ever see your own reflection?" "The food is ready," shouted the abbot from inside the shed. "I think we'll have it outside as it's a nice day. You three push up on the bench so myself and the witch of Mullinavore can have space." Nancy looked around to see the abbot emerging from the half-broken wooden door of the large shed at the centre of the clearing, with 5 small wooden buckets with long wooden handles. He walked to the front of the bench and placed 4 of them in front of Nancy, Abon and Schnabel, and handed one to Nancy. "There you go. Yours is the one without halloubleberries," he said. The witch grabbed one of the buckets by its wooden handle and shoved up further on the bench next to Schnabel. She placed the bucket onto her lap and began scooping handfuls of its content into her mouth. "Not bad! Not bad for a priest," she said, chewing and spitting as she did. The abbot grabbed another bucket and sat at the opposite end of the bench to the witch. Schnabel and Abon quickly grabbed their own buckets and began eating. "Pure muck," said Schnabel, as he scooped and swallowed his first mouthful. Nancy looked down at the small wooden bucket the abbot had handed her. It contained greenish-brown slime that smelled delicious. She tasted a mouthful. It tasted delicious. "Thank you," she said. "Thank the gut if you want to be thankful," said the abbot. "For without the Bongerlon, there would be no food." "Or hunger," noted the witch. Several small chunks of food fell from her mouth as she spoke. "Indeed," noted the abbot. Schnabel, Nancy, Abon and the abbot all ate from their buckets. "Yeah," said Abon, and vomited dramatically onto the ground in front of the bench. "That was a bit rude," noted the abbot. Abon placed her bucket on the ground, staggered to her feet, and made to walk, collapsed, farted, and puked again. "If you don't want your food, do you mind if I have it?" asked Schnabel, though it was more of a statement than anything else, as he swiftly picked up Abon's bucket, poured the contents into his own, and continued eating. Sloppily. "Your 3 friends are extremely rude. They insisted on asking me where I had been on my holidays. Can you imagine asking a witch such a thing? I had to tell them I'd been to Torringlelup and that it has incredible views out across the Sea of Uncertainty, an amazing nighttime aurora, and all the fish you can eat." "Ah, well, at least now they know," noted the abbot. "I should have introduced them to you, witch. This one is called Nancy, from Earth. This one is Schnabel, and the one puking on the ground over there is called Abon. They're looking to get to Shanlabba Feasteen." "Shanlabba Feasteen?" "I don't feel so good," said Schnabel. "Well, that may be the Gut's way of teaching you not to be greedy," noted the abbot. "You just help yourself to more than your share of food." It might be the halloubleberries," said Nancy. "Very wise, Arthur. The gut has expressed itself through the poisonous hallucinogenic properties of halloubleberries." "Poisonous?" gasped Schnabel. "In a way," said the abbot. "In a way that makes you sick but does not kill you. Well, of course, unless you were well used to eating them, like us monks. Not many people eat them regularly enough to be able to stomach them, what with the severe hallucinations they always cause. I'm surprised you wanted them. It looks like that was a mistake on your part. And by Abon too. Ah, well, the convulsions will only last for a while." "Shanlabba Feasteen?" asked the witch for a second time. "Yes," said Nancy. "And why would you want to go there?" We're trying to find a colleague of mine," said Nancy. "His name is Bart McMorrow." "Bart McMorrow?" asked the witch. "Yes," replied Nancy. "Never heard of him," noted the witch. "Me neither," added the abbot. "But I have heard of Shanlabba Feasteen. It is a rocky, barren, forgotten, foul-smelling, unmotorious wasteland. Why would your friend go there?" I don't know," said Nancy. "The Geronimus Flomp just told me that's where he was, and that he was in danger." "Danger of what?" asked the witch. The Flomp didn't say." "Typical," said the witch. "I'd say probably danger of death. Are you sure it wasn't Shanlabba Feasteen Uchther the Flomp was talking about?" "No, it was Shanlabba Feasteen." "Right, because if it was Shanlabba Feasteen Uchther your friend went to, he's probably already dead." "So, do you know how to get there?" asked Nancy. "Of course I know how to get there," said the witch. I am very well travelled. I'm just back from Torrengalub, and only us magic folk get to go there, and it's amazing. There's incredible views out across the Sea of Uncertainty, an amazing nighttime aurora, and all the fish you can eat.
What was the weather like when you were there? Asked the abbot.
Not too bad. I had a bit of rain on the first day, but after that it was sunny. I don't know why I brought 2 suitcases though. You don't need much there, just some light summer clothes.
You needed the break, noted the abbot.
I did, especially after everything Obleron put me through.
I always thought that wizard was a bit of a flute, swanning about the place like he was better than everyone else. I don't know what you ever saw in him, witch.
I still sometimes wonder where himself and Schlocht ended up,
said the witch. They're both dead, said Nancy.
What? How? When did that happen?
Asked the witch. Oh, that was chapters 12 and 14. The wizard Obleron was eaten by a marmsticle, and Schlocht, he had an accident, said Nancy.
Eaten by marmsticles, ha!
Said the witch. She then grinned.
Eaten by marmsticles, she said for a second time. Well, I'm delighted, she noted. Delighted to hear that. Good, very good.
Right, so do you know how to get to Shanlab Feistin? Asked Nancy.
Of course I do. I know where everywhere is. Would you like to go there now? Because you've put me in a good mood. Thank you. But what about your 2 friends? I'm not sure they're in a fit state to go anywhere.
The witch was right. Both Haban and Schnabel were on their hands and knees vomiting into the ground. Neither looked fit to travel. Is it far? Shanlab Feistin, I mean, asked Nancy.
Very, very far. 618 galumps through 6 different biomes, 9 mountain ranges as far as the Canclonic expanse that lies on the rocky shore of the Sea of Uncertainty, so very, very far. Though I can have us there in an instant.
Can we go? Asked Nancy.
We could,
said the witch.
But I'll have to open up an interspatial portal, which I don't mind doing. I fancy a bit of a wander to let the food go down, which was very nice, by the way, and thank you, Abbot.
You're welcome, witch. I don't think those 2 would agree with you, though, said the abbot, pointing to the kneeling, puking Haban and Schnabel.
Good point,
noted the witch.
And I don't want either of that pair puking up on the inside of one of my interspatial portals. Have a word with them, Nancy, will you?
Nancy stood up and walked over to Haban and Schnabel. Sorry, Haban, she said. Schnabel, I don't know if ye heard all that, but the witch has offered to use her interspatial portal to bring us to Shanlab Feistin. Only she's worried that one of you'll get sick on the inside of it. Said Haban. Schnabel farted loudly. Or worse, continued Nancy. Do you think you could keep your bodily fluids to yourselves if we were to go through the portal?
Yeah,
repeated Haban. I know well, said Nancy. Those halubal berries are horrible, and I hate to say it, you've worse to come before feeling better. I thought you would have known about them, so what do you think anyway?
I don't know. What will this portal be like?
Sputtered Schnabel. I don't know, replied Nancy. Hang on, I'll ask the witch. Nancy turned to face the witch, who was still seated on the opposite end of the abbot on the wooden bench in front of the ruined shed at the centre of the clearing known as the Abbotine Monastery. What is your interspatial portal like, witch?
That's a bit of a personal question. One I would take offence at were you not an extraterrestrial. But in future, if a magical being offers you the use of their interspatial portal for a post-meal expedition, be sure and avoid asking them what it'll be like, because it comes across as cheeky and ungrateful.
Sorry, witch, explained Nancy. It's just Schnabel here wants to know.
Right. Well, if he must know, it's a many-fringed, alto-ringed conical with serrated lambdonical clumps, arranged in 6 transparent cuneiform layers, about 14 rovalized cumaturns in girth, with 2 entrances, a galondigal stalagmite, just to odify the temporal flux, of course, a thalasser at the bottom, 4 ankle gontricles, a fronged umbar sphere, and smells like sunrise. So, you can see why I don't want either of those 2 old fogies mucking it up.
Right, said Nancy, who then turned back to Schnabel. Did you hear that, Schnabel? She asked.
No,
sputtered Schnabel.
What did she say it was like?
Fairly big. So, there's plenty of room, replied Nancy.
Good,
sputtered Shaban. Just one thing, though. Try not to puke inside it.
Why?
Coughed Schnabel. The witch doesn't want it getting dirty.
That's a bit uppity for someone who lives in a dump like this. Don't worry, though, Nancy. I've nothing left in me stomach,
noted Schnabel.
Me either,
agreed Haban. Nancy turned back to face the witch and Abbot. They promised not to puke, she said. The witch nodded and held out an open palm towards the sky. The clearing suddenly grew cold and the air began to swirl around Nancy, Schnabel and Haban, and in an instant a large brown freestanding door in a frame appeared between them and the bench where the witch and the abbot were seated.
You'll have to come round, said the witch. The door opens this side.
Nancy walked and Haban and Schnabel shuffled to the bench that faced the door. The witch stood up, walked towards it and opened it. A short, multicoloured corridor suddenly appeared on the other side of the frame of the open door.
"Come on," she said. "The last one in, shut the door behind you. We don't want anything from Shanlava Feisteen Oaktor making its way back to Jupiter proper."
Nancy briefly thought about asking why, and then thought the better of it. She waited as Haban and Schnabel shuffled through the door and into the bright corridor. She stepped in after them and swung the door closed. It instantly disappeared, as did the bright corridor. Nancy found herself standing knee-deep in mist surrounded by a strong smell of hydrogen sulfide. Surrounding her were small mounds with barren skeletal trees set into exposed black rock, piercing the murk in patches. The sky was a dirty swirl of clouds. Nancy then saw someone she recognised. Someone familiar. Someone who reminded her of a life before glimps and crossbows and Jupiterian politics and Martian sheriffs and hallucinogenic berries.
"What are you doing here, Nancy?"
asked Bart. "Looking for you."
"What do you want?"
asked Bart. Just to find you. So you can save Tom and the lads from too."
"Tom Staunton's a bollocks. I couldn't care less about him. And Owen and France here in bits and pieces scattered about the place under the mist here."
"Dead?"
"Are you serious, Nancy?" "No, they just dismembered themselves for the crack."
"Bart!" rumbled a voice from everywhere and nowhere. "You never said we had visitors."
"Piss off, Finockiocht. Nobody wants to know you,"
hissed the witch.
"That's where you're wrong, witch,"
rumbled the voice.
"Me and Bart here have been hanging out having a great time."
"Right," said the witch. "One extraterrestrial wants to know you. So what? None of the rest of us here do. Not me, not the extraterrestrial with the crossbow, and not even the filthy pair of ancient puke-stained Bondrosnians. So piss off. We're trying to walk the dinner down, and we've had halloumberberries, and the last thing we need is your discarnate ramblings in our ears. It'd give us indigestion."
And that was it for the late evening on the 5th day of the first human expedition to another planet. European Space Agency Mission Specialist Nancy Goodaim McGinley, European Space Agency Mission Specialist Bart McMorrow, a power-hungry Jupiterian autocrat, hallucinogenic berries, an underground army of sorts, Shanlava Feisteen Oaktor, the interspatial portal of a house-proud witch, and the last remaining copy of the Book of Bongerlon, adrift on the Sea of Uncertainty on Jupiter. Okay, thanks for listening, folks. That's the end of Chapter 6. I'm hoping to have Chapter 37 done by the end of this week. So depending on when you're listening to it, that is sometime in the past or future. But it'll be out probably, hopefully, fairly soon. And again, anyone that's been following the whole thing through, thank you very much for listening and chat to you soon.